So the ANC step-aside resolution is likely to influence the party's leadership contest at the end of this year, and it's already divided the provinces. As you may know, the party's Gauteng secretary has joined leaders in Limpopo and KwaZulu-Natal who've called for it to be reviewed due to inconsistent application. But other leaders, such as the Northern Cape chairperson, for instance, disagree. They say it must be defended alongside the state capture report. Watching all of that for us is Govan Whittles from Newzroom Afrika, our reporter here. He's been speaking to Nciza in Gauteng as well as Zamani Saul in the Northern Cape. A good place to begin, Govan, is in the country's economic hub, Gauteng. Why is the province in this? Why is the position of Gauteng the way it is at the moment?
Well, essentially it's because of what they say is inconsistent application, and they believe that every time someone new is implicated or accused of wrongdoing, the NEC of the ANC seems to take a decision based on who that person is. That's the gist of why they believe this thing should be reviewed. We spoke to the Gauteng secretary, and what was interesting about his commentary was that he seems to suggest that it should go beyond that. It should be a decision taken on an individual basis by people who believe that them being implicated in any sort of wrongdoing would drag the ANC's name through the mud. Well, that extends it beyond, way beyond people being charged and actually appearing in a court of law. That was the initial step-aside decision. It was reviewed after two people from Limpopo stepped aside, Nciza, Florence Radzalani. They're back now, and only those who are charged are expected to step aside, but it is still a divisive issue. We'll get to Nciza in a moment. We should note that right now, the people who are calling for it to be reviewed include the provinces of Limpopo, of KwaZulu-Natal. Now we have the Gauteng secretary speaking about it. In Free State, because they have an interim structure, there's no provincial decision on it, but the Eastern Cape and the Northern Cape as well as the Western Cape want it to be defended. Let's take a look at what Nciza had to say.
I think for now it's not used fairly, and the fact that an NEC will then sit the following week and change the decision, another NEC will do that on the basis of whose content, I just feel we must go and correct it. It must be applied, but how it's done, I mean, two comrades from Limpopo were outside for a very long time. When many people were then starting to be accused, they then changed the step aside and they said you must be charged. And then after that, there's always some movement on the application of the step, which for me is a problem. But step aside is a correct. You ordinarily, if you know your name is dragging the ANC into the mud, you must step aside. Doesn't matter who you are. If you are not individualistic in your approach, you must step aside and protect the brand of the ANC, whether from the president till the last member, ordinarily. But because today all of us, it's about individuals, about you are my this or whatever the case might be, we don't do it. Then we are forced to document even step aside. The step aside is not supposed to be a documented policy in my view. It's supposed to be a conscious decision from a member of the ANC if they feel they are dragging the name of the ANC into the mud. And I think it must apply across.
So that's the view from Nciza in Gauteng. In the Northern Cape, Zamani Saul is basically talking about more than just the step-aside resolution, but also the state capture report, which implicates some of the ANC's most senior leaders.
That's really the question, isn't it? Whether those that were implicated in the state capture report should be contesting. Right now, the ANC will allow it. Zamani Saul saying, let's defend the step-aside decision. Nothing wrong with it. People that are charged should step aside and they shouldn't contest as per the ANC's guidelines. But he's drawn an interesting parallel between the state capture report leading up to this conference and the matter of the Scorpions leading up to the 2007 conference, suggesting that if the president loses this conference, the same thing that happened to the Scorpions would happen to the state capture report. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
When we went to the 2007 National Conference, the issue of the existence of the Scorpions and the perceived persecution of Comrade JZ was a big issue. In actual fact, it determined the outcomes of that conference. That is the reason why the newly elected NEC in 2007, before March in 2008, the NEC already took a decision that the Scorpions must be disbanded. So because that was one of the driving political discussions towards the National Conference, even now we are sitting more or less with the same situation. We've got a Zondo Commission report which implicates senior leadership of the ANC. It will be a major issue for discussion towards the National Conference. And I'm certain that the leadership contestation will evolve around that. And I'm of the firm view. I'm raising it now. I'm of the firm view of Comrade Cyril, with his program of renewal of the ANC. Comrade Cyril is the core leader of the renewal of the ANC. If he loses that conference, by end of March next year, the state capture report will be thrown out of the window. And there will be all sorts of reasons why not those recommendations should be implemented. I'm quite convinced about that. We'll just have a rerun of what happened to the Scorpions in 2007.
Govan, thank you very much for that. Govan is part of the team that will bring you all the latest on the movements among ANC provinces as we count down to the national conference in December.